Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Christine Overby. She leads the Forrester Leadership Board's product, which provides a platform for peer collaboration in which executives from top companies come together to solve business problems. And in her presentation this morning, she will teach you about the radical changes in customer behavior, how innovators respond, and the new model of technology leadership. The floor is yours, Christine. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everyone. So we've had an illusionist, and we've had a very excitable first keynote. So now, it's a hard act to follow. But I will say I'm really excited to be here. Many of you may not know this, but the first European research office that Forrester had was in Amsterdam. So this is one of my favorite cities. And when Rob asked me to speak today to a group of CIOs, I thought, something's off here because I'm a marketer. I might have said a dirty word. But I started to think about it, and I thought, right, what's the angle? What can I bring to this discussion? I run Forrester's leadership board, been in marketing, and then I thought, aha, I can talk about what CEOs need from CIOs, because we in the business have got to partner effectively with you in this new era. Now, it sounds quite dramatic, the new era. How do you create competitive advantage in this new era? It used to be about manufacturing. It used to be about distribution. Even more recently, it was about information. But now, Forrester talks about being customer obsessed as the primary way that you will define competitive advantage in this new era, because we have incredibly powerful customers now. Now, Forrester has a long-running quantitative data product. We survey 85% of the GDP now, and I'm going to share with you just a little bit of data to prove this point. 73% of European online adults use multiple devices through your daily lives. And we all saw this when we took the picture of Rob this morning. Now, that translates into a fundamental shift in behavior. So let me show you this. For every euro that is spent online, €5 is spent in the store after we've done online research on our PCs or our mobiles or our tablets. This translates into 529 million euro. That's 31% of European retail sales today. And we think by 2018 that number will be at 920 euros. So there's a fundamental change in the behavior, and brain research indicates that this is not just superficial. So let me show you something. This is your brain. This is your brain on Google. Any questions? This is research from a neurologist, Dr. Gary Small, who has been looking at how our brains are activated by new technology. What you see here on the top is the brain of someone who has not been exposed to technology. This is an elderly person who's searching on Google. And then what you see on the bottom is a technology native. And what Dr. Small is finding is that when you're more exposed to technology, there are changes that are happening in the frontal lobe. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for decision-making and complex reasoning. It's the part that's responsible for the customer making a decision about your product or service. So we're literally going through a physiological mind shift. Now, Forrester talks about a similar mind shift. We call it the mobile mind shift. This is the expectation that any desired information or service is available on any appropriate device in context at your moment of needs. And yes, that is the picture, the after picture of the Pope. So, what does it mean when you have this customer obsession, when you focus on stimulating those new areas in the brain? It means higher business performance. Customer experience is not just a fluffy discipline. This is research that's based on a customer experience index that Forrester has created. In this index, we look at how easy an experience is, how effective it is, and how enjoyable it is. And we measure all sorts of companies and brands on this customer experience index. And what you're looking here is the 10-year financial return for customer experience leaders compared to customer experience laggards. So you'll notice a 43% return on investment over that 10-year period. Customer experience translates into business performance. Okay, so how do innovators respond? I'm going to talk to you about a company that is not a startup. It's a big company in a well-established industry with razor-thin profit margins. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to talk about Delta Airlines, a US carrier. Well, at least they're a partner with KLM. Delta has undergone an amazing transformation. This is a company that a few years ago was almost bankrupt. Had a partnership with Northwest Airlines. It wasn't really going well, a merger with them, and has pulled back from that. In fact, what we started noticing when Forresterites came back to the office after flying Delta was they said, you know what? It wasn't just that they said it didn't suck, or it didn't suck quite as much as it used to. They said it was wonderful. It was really enjoyable. And we also noticed around the same time, Delta's customer experience index started increasing. And last year, it increased by 13 percentage points. That's very difficult to do. So, how did they do it? They asked a very basic question. They didn't use a lot of ethnography. They didn't use anthropologists. They didn't even use social listening. They asked a simple question in a survey of their customers. They said, what do you hate most about flying? And turns out, people hate cancellations more than anything. More than delays, more than anything. They want to get home. So Delta's VP of Operation Control, Dave Holt, said, well, if that's what customers hate most, let's not cancel any more flights. And that's when Delta became the no cancellation airline. So it started with that simple vision. That simple vision, and this man, looking very intense. This is a man on a mission. This is Delta CEO Richard Anderson. He is an intense guy. He's highly quotable. And he said, we control 100% of our business. Literally, he said, we are not going to stand by and be victims of our environment. We're going to take control. And they quite literally did. You see, there are only a couple of things that an airline needs to know about its customers to deliver a great customer experience. They need to know a little bit about them. They need to know where they're coming and where they're going. And they need to get them there. And to do that, you need two things. You need data and you need gas. And that is what Delta went about to do. They bought a company, Travelport. This is a travel e-commerce company. Had 10 years of customer reservation data, billing data, making new reservations. Delta had already worked with Travelport. They had Travelport data within 180 customer applications. But they said, that's not enough. We can't rely on a third party for something that is so fundamental to our business. Again, the CEO, Richard Anderson, said, we won't be, for this particular use case, we won't be on a shared software model. We need to own, control, and operate the data around our operations system. So remember, I said you need data and you need gas. They also went out and bought an oil refinery. And this is it, based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's quite lovely. Now see, a typical airline would have stopped and said, we're not in the oil business, we're not in the gas business. But Delta knew that to operate differently, to deliver on this no cancellation policy, they didn't have the luxury to say that. Anderson says, "I don't like to hear anyone at Delta say that fuel is out of our control. You might as well send up a white flag." So I think it's pretty clear that Delta is not sending out a white flag. The final thing that I'll share about this fascinating case study is that on top of all of the underlying technical and business model changes, we see a change in the customer application itself. So this is a little bit hard to read, but this is the key to Delta's suite of mobile applications. They have been designed for every point in the customer journey. So to find and compare bookings, to check your flight status. And what's interesting here is that Delta designed this with an outside-in standpoint. They said, we know that there are several instances where a customer is not going to want to have that app on their smartphone. So we will also provide tablet capability, and we will provide a mobile website. So outside-in design of this engagement. So if you're an innovator, like Delta, and you think differently, you also have to behave differently, and that starts with tech leadership. So let me talk to you a little bit about what tech leadership looks like now, and I'll put on my marketer hat for a bit. So those are your customers. Hopefully they are all as young and attractive as these pictures. And you have marketing. Within marketing, you have a chief marketing officer increasingly spending more on marketing technology. You have an e-business person responsible for commerce in digital, and increasingly that multi-channel. Marketing leaders executing the vision. Customer insight professionals. This is a new discipline within marketing, but it is increasingly growing, and they're taking the data and the analytics and turning that into insight. And then you have IT, tech management. You have you guys, CIOs, your teams. The real fundamental question when you look at this organization is who is going to deliver that technology? And I think we've already talked about the chief digital officer, that superhero flying in and saving the day, fixing everything, making it all wonderful. We at Forrester do not believe that this is the answer. You will get a short-term jump start with a chief digital officer, but the technology is way too complex for this person to sit and this team to sit outside of the tech management organization as a bolt-on. We also hear a lot about the marketing technology officer, and we do see that today CMOs are spending 58% more on technology than they used to. But again, we don't believe that this is the answer. And that's because if you look at something like the Delta mobile applications, you see that the front end, the systems of engagement, are extremely simple, mapped to the customer's travel journey. But behind that is a complex web of systems and data that you have to get right. And that requires the CMO and the CIO to work more closely together in partnership. So we talk more and more about a business technology agenda that is sitting alongside the IT agenda. I was with a group of 24 enterprise architects actually last week in Amsterdam for our leadership board meeting. And one of the architects from a major retail bank said, I like to think of this business technology group as the second gear engaging alongside traditional IT. That's how we think about it within our organization. So you have the CIO spending now part of his or her time, your time, on the business technology agenda alongside the IT agenda. We see that many of your direct reports also have to share this time. So for the enterprise architect, we believe that a more increasing 50, 60% of their time is going to be spent on this business technology agenda. With the infrastructure and operations folks, this is where big business hits big iron, a little bit less so, 20, 30%. Application development, quite high. Sourcing and vendor management, a little bit less so. But security and risk, this is a big, big profile within the age of the customer. Because this is no longer about corporate firewalls, or not only just about corporate firewalls, it's also about the privacy that's paramount to this customer experience. But it can't just stop there. You have to have an interface with the marketing department that also has responsibility. So the CMOs and their direct organizations also speaking the same language. And you see companies like Westport Bank down in Australia now talking the language of the customer, using that to bring these two teams together to drive that competitive advantage in the age of the customer. So that is the organization. What I want to leave you with are 3 truths. These are my personal leadership truths as I have run the leadership board business for Forrester and worked with a large team and worked with our own internal technology and external suppliers. And hopefully you can take something from this. The first is to be ruthless. And what I mean here is be ruthless with your time and be ruthless with your priorities. So this is Jeff Bezos, obviously, from Amazon. How many of you have heard of the question mark emails that Bezos sends? I see 1 or 2 hands. So let me tell you quickly about them. Jeff has a personal email account, jeff@amazon.com. You can email him now. And he monitors it. And he will respond to particular customer problems. He will forward that email to the internal person at Amazon responsible with a single question mark. And you know, if you're at Amazon and you get one of those, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a marketer, you have to drop everything that you're doing and define the fix, because Jeff is expecting you to report back. So that's the first leadership truth. I've had to learn it as a working mom of 3. The second is to be empathetic, which might sound completely opposite of being ruthless. But here's the thing, and to quote Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And this is what I would encourage you to think about. For me, the empathy is about the feeling that I invoke when one of our executive members has gotten a problem solved by spending time with another executive member. You need to think about where in your business you have to invoke that emotion. And you need to think about it within the construct of system design, which is a little bit uncomfortable, because systems are about logic and rational discipline. They're about being useful and usable, but you have to think about how to make them enjoyable and even magical. And I would say to you that this is not something that's going to happen down the road. This is happening now. If you look at Lotto Lab out of University College in London, they are spending time hiring cognitive psychologists, behavioral psychologists, to look at what makes customers think and to design systems accordingly. And it is our prediction that 10 years from now, on the next Jubilee, we'll be looking out in the audience, and some of you CIOs will have medical degrees. The final thing I'll leave you with is to be simple, and I think Eve already spoke about this. We call it disciplined simplicity. It's this notion of Uberification, taking all the applications and rationalizing them down to push-button simplicity. Disciplined simplicity is not the start, it's the end, and it takes getting into the muck and being awash in the complexity to get to the point where you have identified that single thing that this system is going to do well. With that, I will leave you with a final quote that I keep in mind with my business, which is that leadership is a gift given by those who follow. So I wish you the best of luck on your personal leadership journey. Your ability to transform on behalf of your customers will redefine your business. It will also redefine your careers. And with that, thank you so much.
Overby. Thank you very much, Christine. Thanks very much.
Thank you.